We will not let you build this pipeline.
There's heated debate over the Keystone XL pipeline.
Stop the dirty pipeline plan!
The roughly 1,700-mile-long crude oil pipeline would run from the oil sands region in Alberta, Canada, down to refineries on the Texas Gulf Coast. The Obama administration is still reviewing the northern part of the project, a nearly 1,200-mile stretch of pipeline from Canada to Nebraska. But a previously approved southern section of Keystone XL is already under construction.
The Gulf Coast project extends from a place called Cushing, Oklahoma, down to Nederland, Texas. Basically, it is going to take crude oil that is stockpiled now in Cushing and doesn't have a place to be refined because of the capacity constraints in the heartland, and we're taking it to the Gulf Coast to refineries there.
Supporters point out that the pipeline is bringing jobs. TransCanada estimates that roughly 4,000 workers will build and assemble the pipeline and pump stations.
There's 3 spreads, and each spread will have about 700 or 800 workers at peak, and then the balance will be working on pump stations and a tank system in Cushing.
But the jobs are temporary. Once construction finishes on the pipeline, only a handful of workers will remain to maintain operations. Environmental groups like 350.org have been organizing protests against the pipeline. Founder Bill McKibben says the environmental impact of Keystone far outweighs any potential economic benefit.
It does cross some places you wouldn't want to cross, like the Oglala Aquifer, where a spill would be pretty disastrous. But mostly it's that if it doesn't spill out while it's coming through the heartland, it's going to spill into the atmosphere.
According to a Canadian government report, the oil sands account for about 5% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. But the government of Alberta says it's working to reduce emissions through regulations and investments in new technologies. TransCanada maintains that pipelines are the safest way to transport crude.
When you look at a modern pipeline like Keystone, it isn't surprising that the State Department came to the conclusion in their environmental impact statement that Keystone would be the safest pipeline of its type ever constructed in the United States.
In its final environmental impact statement, the State Department did say that if Keystone is built to code, it will be safer than typical pipelines, but it stopped short of calling it the safest pipeline of all time. According to U.S. government figures, more than 5 billion barrels of oil flow through pipelines in the U.S. every year. And some of it does leak out. According to the Department of Transportation, nearly 47,000 barrels of oil were lost to leaks in 2010 and 2011. Beyond the potential for leaks, environmental groups worry that Keystone is a big step in expanding development of Canada's oil sands, which they say is a more carbon-intensive method of extracting oil. McKibben says this will only exacerbate global warming. Despite pledges to try to lower emissions and the industry's insistence that oil can be moved safely through the pipeline, McKibben isn't convinced and sees little room for compromise.
We're no longer at the point where we can, we'll do the easiest possible thing. We've got to leave stuff in the ground, and that's what the Keystone fight is about.
Both TransCanada and environmentalists expect the Obama administration to decide on Keystone XL's fate in the first half of the year. The only thing that both groups can agree on is that one of them will not be pleased with the president's decision. For CNN Money, I'm Steve Hargraves.